You know, I think for a long time, I measured my life by accomplishments, what I was building, what I was achieving, what was I moving forward towards? Was I making progress? And I don't think that those are bad questions. I think that those are natural questions. But lately, I've been wondering if God is asking different questions altogether. Not exactly what are you accomplishing, but who are you becoming? Because when I look at scripture, God seems surprisingly concerned with character, patience, humility, faithfulness, love, integrity, the things that the world doesn't always celebrate, but things that he seems to value deeply. And honestly, I don't know that I always thought about life that way. For a long time, I thought growth meant bigger opportunities, bigger goals, bigger results. But maybe growth isn't always about bigger. Maybe growth sometimes is deeper. Maybe it's more about patience than growth, right? Maybe learning to trust God is growth. Maybe becoming a better husband, a better father, a more faithful person is growth. Maybe the things God celebrates doesn't always look impressive from the outside. And, maybe that's okay. Because if I'm honest, there have been seasons where I was so focused on where I was going that I didn't pay much attention to who I was becoming in the process of getting there. I wanted results. I wanted progress. I wanted things to happen, especially on my terms, right? But God often sees much more patient than I am because He isn't just trying to get us somewhere, He's forming something inside of us. And I think that's why some seasons seem longer than we expect. Not because God has forgotten us, but because He's withholding something good. He's doing something deeper than what we can see. He's teaching us things success can't teach: patience and dependence, humility in the presence of all these things, especially dependence on Him, perseverance, especially, and trust. Perseverance is written a lot in the Bible, and I think for good reasons. It takes a lot because perseverance has to finish its work in you so that you can be whole and complete, lacking nothing. And honestly, some of the hardest seasons of my life have shaped me more than the easiest seasons of my life. Not because I enjoyed them, definitely not because I enjoyed them, but because they revealed things in me that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. They exposed my pride, they exposed my fear, they exposed where I was putting my identity and my trust. And they forced me to lean on God in ways that I probably wouldn't have in the life that would have gone according to my plans. And maybe that's true for some of you too. Maybe you're frustrated because you're measuring your life by accomplishments, while God is measuring it by transformation. And transformation doesn't happen in your way, on your time, on your schedule. Maybe you're focused on arrival while He's focused on formation. Because I don't think that God's greatest goal is simply to make us successful. I think His desire is to make us more like Christ. And that changes how we view everything because suddenly waiting isn't wasted. The difficult seasons aren't meaningless. Ordinary days actually matter. The small acts of faithfulness matter even all the more. The unseen things of our life matter. And maybe some of the greatest work God is doing in our lives is the work that nobody else sees, the work inside of us. Because one day, the things that we've been doing and the things that we have in our life will fade. Titles are going to fade. Money fades. Recognition is definitely going to fade. But who we become in the process is the only thing that truly remains. And honestly, I think that's why scripture talks about so much about the heart. Because God isn't impressed by appearances. He's after something a little bit deeper than just appearance, not just what we do, but who we're becoming. And I think that that's freeing because it means I don't have to constantly prove myself. God has already justified me. I don't have to compare my life to someone else's life. I don't have to rush every season that I'm in. I can trust that God is working even when I don't see the immediate results. Because maybe that's the greatest thing that God is producing in my life. Maybe it's producing something through me that's the greatest. Maybe it's something in me. And maybe years from now, when I finally look back on this season of my life, I won't remember all the goals I accomplished. Maybe I'll be grateful for the person that God was shaping me into all along. Because at the end of the day, I don't think God's going to ask me how impressive my life looked. I think He cares more, far more, about what I learned to love, whether I learned to love all, whether I learned to trust Him, whether I became faithful, whether I became humble in the process, whether I became the kind of man that He created me to be. Because accomplishments come and go, but character lasts. And the older I get, the more I believe that God cares far more about who we're becoming than about what we're accumulating. And honestly, I'm thankful for that. And I think you should be too. Because God's making you into something great. He's making you into something you can't even comprehend, conceive, believe, or achieve on your own. You need to trust Him and you need to put your faith in Him. And I appreciate you just for being here and listening to what we have to say. And until next time, man, peace.